Let's go straight to London. We're joined by I24 News European correspondent Jonathan Sacerdoti. Jonathan, good morning to you. Public support really that high for sending more aircrafts, for joining in the air battle in Syria?
Public support is high, but interestingly, in a poll in today's Times carried out by YouGov, there's been a slight shift away from support. So public opinion dropped from 59% to 48% in support of those airstrikes, and the public opinion against has risen from 20% to 31%, with the undecideds remaining unchanged at 21%. But we can still see that there is quite a good majority there in the public who are in favour, compared to when the last poll was taken just after those Paris atrocities, and perhaps opinion was a bit stronger.
Now, when the voice is coming against the strike, is there any concern when it comes from the opposition of the strategy, as there must be in every other country sending planes over to Syria, the strategy, the long-term strategy of this campaign from the air against ISIS?
Very much so, and those who are against these strikes, against Mr. Cameron's plan, emphasise exactly that point. They say that simply dropping bombs on Islamic State in Syria from British aircraft will not make much of a difference in the Allied effort against Islamic State. They say that boots on the ground are needed, and that those boots on the ground that have been promised by Mr. Cameron, from this number that's being bandied around a lot, 70,000 possible united troops of the Free Syrian Army and other groups who can be relied on to fight on the same side as Britain, that number is false, it's inflated, and that when it came to the crunch, they don't feel that that many people will actually be there on the ground, that those forces won't disintegrate into many other factions who are no longer fighting together. Those are the concerns of some of the people who say that this is not the right time to extend the airstrikes that Britain is already carrying out over Iraq to Syria in order to target Islamic State.
No, entirely. Jonathan, if you can stay with us, because I want to ask our esteemed colleagues in the studio here right now. Professor Zevi, when we're looking at these Western players coming in, how does that differ from the agenda of Erdogan? What can he gain with all these players in the air right now?
Well, obviously, what is turning out to be a bigger Western coalition doesn't have the same aims as Turkey and doesn't have the same aims as Russia. Because both Russia and the West want to defeat ISIS and the other Islamist forces on the ground, but the Russians want to leave Assad in power, and the West wants to take him out, which is also Turkey's interest. I think this is going to be a much more difficult game in the next few months, and more forces will be drawn into Syria. In retrospect, it looks like a very, very badly run campaign, because if they had done this 3-4 years ago, they would have finished the whole thing with much less power, much less forces on the ground, much less casualties in this war.
The argument is, Ali, I'm asking you, this cannot be done at this point right now without troops on the ground. By troops, I'm talking about Western troops.
I don't think it can be made without troops on the ground, but I want to suggest a perspective to what is happening in Syria via what is happening in Lebanon. The yesterday deal that took place between the exchange of prisoners between the Al-Nusra Front, which is the Al-Qaeda Syrian branch, with the support of the Saudis and the Qataris who were the mediators, and on the other hand, Hezbollah, who was the Lebanese part of the deal via the Lebanese government, where the demands of what gave the Lebanese government did not meet the minimum demands of the Al-Nusra Front, and yet the deal was accomplished on one hand. The second thing is that the Western Saudi camp in Lebanon understand that Syria still has weight, and the Iranian still has big weight in Lebanon, and they agreed that the new president will be part of Hezbollah camp. It is true they are not suggesting Michel Aoun, but they are suggesting Souleymane Frangieh, who is a very personal and intimate friend friend of Bashar Assad. And according to Lebanese newspaper Walid Jumbala, the Druze leader said, our camp is losing in Syria, our camp is losing in Yemen, and we should not wait to a regional shift in order to arrange our papers in Lebanon. So this shows also that there is right now the move is in favor of the Russians, Iranians and Syrian for the moment. This is why I don't think that the goals of the Western countries when they come to intervene in Syria has only one goal, and it is to defeat the Islamic State.
The Islamic State. And just to conclude, Jonathan Sacerdoti still with us, putting aside all these sectarian strifes that I don't think the West is completely aware of it stepping into. Today's vote, today, Wednesday, in the British Parliament, it's expected to pass. That's what I'm looking to see. Is it?
The vote is expected to pass. Mr. Cameron was always clear that he wouldn't hold the vote unless he thought he would win it.
Right.
And more than thought he would win it, really. He wants to believe that he's going to win it going right in. He can rely on somewhere between 30 and 50 Labour Party members, Labour Party MPs, to vote in favour of his proposition here. And Mr. Corbyn is playing down that number towards the 30, and Cameron is expecting something towards that 50. He had perhaps hoped for 100 people extra, so that this would be a very conclusive majority. But either way, it is expected he'll win, and that means the RAF Air Force will be joining in those strikes within possibly hours, probably days.
Possible hours from the moment of that vote. Fascinating. Okay, Jonathan Sacerdoti from London joining us this morning. I want to thank you, of course, also Ali and Professor Zevi as we move along.